Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that big Gino Rieko here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And today we are discussing Moon Hunters, a video game by Kid Fox Games that came out a few years ago. And joining me, as always, to discuss all things video games, Pete Busby. Hello, Pete.
Hey, we're just keeping that moon train rolling. So in honor of that, I have a moon fun fact for everybody this time around.
Ooh.
So did you know that the moon actually used to be way closer to Earth?
I did, but tell me
Yeah.
why.
Sure. Computer simulations suggest the moon could have been 12 to 19 times closer. So that would be just 20,000 kilometers away. That's compared to almost 400,000 today. Like, that's nothing in like space terms. That's like you can reach out and poke it. So basically, it's because of a transfer of energy from the rotation of the Earth and tidal bulges. So when like the ocean bulges out, combined, those help to push the moon 3.78 centimeters away each year. That's basically the same speed your fingernails grow at.
Ah,
Whoa.
I know, right? Isn't that a weird comparison?
it is. So what happens if it keeps getting further away, though?
I guess eventually it would just
Fly off.
it probably can't escape our gravity if like Earth's rotation's what's pushing it. Eventually it'll probably just like hit an equilibrium point. But I'm no astronomer.
That's a great point. You aren't. If anyone is an astronomer and wants to write in and assuage my deep, deep existential fear of the moon flying off into the night, please write in. That other voice you heard is the mistress of games herself, M. Palladino. Hello, M.
Hello. How long ago was the moon really, really close? Like a long time ago?
Yes. So for like Julius Caesar, it
Mhm.
would have been roughly 300 feet closer.
Oh,
So like it's
that's
been a
not very
long
much.
time. No, I mean it's only 4 centimeters a year.
Mhm.
We need to strap rockets to the back of the moon and then blast it towards us. Nothing bad
Yeah,
could happen.
that's probably fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
The moon doesn't rotate, right?
It like kind of does, but it always shows the same face to Earth. I don't really understand that bit either. So again, don't ask me like follow-up questions for my fun facts. I very seldom have the answers.
It's okay. I'm sorry. Just think, I haven't thought about the moon in a while, other than wow, It's a full moon. Crazy.
I know, right?
All right. So before we discuss Moon Hunters, a reminder: you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That is our email address. If you want to write in, you can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, which is where you can get access to our Discord if you support the show for any dollar amount. We are 3 patrons away from having to play Sonic 06, and Off the Deep End is also 3 patrons away from having to play Ultima 9 or Ultima Sonic 69. That's right.
That's not the real title, right?
That
Well, we're doing both of those things. Sonic
the
and Ultima.
combo.
Sonic 06, Ultima 9, Ultima Sonic 69.
Okay, all right, I get it now. That's
Sure.
that's a Deep Listens branding activity.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a Deep Listens branding activity, yes. These are 2 different games that we will both be forced to play that are both not very good. So if you want to push us over the edge, it doesn't take very much. And if you are a current patron who wants to bump up your contribution to add another person, just reach out, make the change on the Patreon, and then ping me. You would already have my access to me via the Discord, and I will add an additional person for you. That also counts. So we're alarmingly close, folks. We also, speaking of the Discord, should probably check in on the Discord report.
The Discord report. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. This week on the Discord, we did our Game of the Year podcast recently.
At a brisk
That should be
2.5
coming out.
hours.
Yeah, we breezed through it this year somehow. Not a lot of contention the Off the Deep End crew had a coalition that we just couldn't get past. So that's going to be probably the episode after this one, I think. Yes.
It depends on
No?
whether this gets edited first or that. I think both files will be available simultaneously.
Either it's out or
Or will be soon.
Either it's out or it will be out. Yes. Other than that, what else is going on in the Discord? Off the Deep End is excited about the fan version of Daggerfall that was released as a Unity project. Fans of Skyrim, there was games before that, which might come as a surprise to you. I think Daggerfall was the first one, but I'm not sure. I tried to play that game, and it was hard, shall we say. You actually have to like wave your sword around in order to hit things. And I died many, many times in the introductory dungeon.
I believe Zeto in the Discord said it best. If you do not dagger, you will fall.
Yes. And I could not dagger, and therefore I fell so many times. This was definitely an off the deep end game. So don't expect that we're going to cover it.
Nope.
But they're probably going to. Other than that, anything else going on in Discord?
I guess Pictomancer got released in FF14, and you seemed excited about that.
Yeah, the keynote address for Final Fantasy XIV was last night, where they announced that the other new class in the new expansion, this is 7.0 for those keeping track. Dawn Trail is the new expansion's name. It's going to have the Pictomancer. So,
what is a
played Final
Pictomancer?
Yeah. So in Final Fantasy VI, there is the character Realm, and she like paints to copy moves from enemies, I think.
She paints monsters, and then she creates a copy of them that will do an attack.
Yes.
She's Sai from Naruto. Got it.
Yes.
Sure.
Let's say yes.
Yeah, that sounds right. And so now they're getting Pictomancer, and then there's the other class, which is Viper, and that is just you have two swords. So
Sick.
I guess it's better than the one sword.
I love that. One brings painting to life. The other's like, 2 swords, baby.
2
What else do you
swords.
need?
And they announced that one a while ago, and I was like, damn, 2 swords, though.
Like, that's twice as good.
That's twice as good. I play a samurai, which is 1 sword, but if I got 2 swords...
You've been holding the shield in that other hand like a moron when you could have been stabbing with it.
Not with samurai. You're just 2-handing that katana.
That's true.
So,
look, if it's good enough for Musashi, it's good enough for me. I 2-hand.
That's true. We also had in the Magic the Gathering channel, Wizards of the Coast released some promotional art for a new card set that was coming out. And it looks like when they contracted out for the promotional art, somebody used AI art to generate the whole background image.
Yep.
So it looks like Edison bulbs and like an old-fashioned science-y sort of thing. And the Edison bulbs had like fuses that were non-contiguous and wires that went to nowhere. And so
my
it's
favorite is the what is it, like a meter thing on the side here?
Yeah, the gauge.
Yeah, there's like a gauge and it just has gibberish on the numbers. Yeah.
That's the worst.
They denied
you can tell
it.
Someone is going to get fired for that.
They denied it until they for one day they were like, y'all are crazy. We don't use AI art. And then the next day they were like, so what we said yesterday, we made an oopsie.
What
So
we
that is
meant was we don't use AI art on the cards. We do not talk to the promotion people about that.
yeah. We don't what our contractors do apparently needs scrutiny or something. Whatever, losers. So yeah, that was a fun thing. This is like the fourth or fifth different Wizards of the Coast AI art scandal that's happened recently because people don't like that they are just unleashing AI art on a bunch of stuff. Yeah, their quality control, it's gotten a lot worse since they stopped just having people send them art on canvas the way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With that, I think it's time for my obsession of the week. I started watching anime again, folks. I'm sorry.
Hey, man, you don't have to apologize to me.
I have one that
You do have to apologize for the anime that you're watching. Go ahead.
So I was going to say there's a good one and a bad one. I started watching
Mhm.
Komi Can't Communicate, which is not a good show. It is about a girl who has social anxiety, who's trying to make friends. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting concept. Like, she has a hard time talking, so she writes, but everyone's trying to help her. But it turns out it's just a very thinly veiled vehicle for a male power fantasy because
Nice.
she's the
Classic anime.
she's the prettiest girl in school, and the most average boy in school was the only one who noticed that she doesn't talk. And so he's helping her find friends. And no one's really helping her get over her social anxiety at all. They're just like, oh, our friend is basically mute. Yeah, so that show wasn't very good. I gave up after episode 6 or 7 because it just was clear that it wasn't going to get better. Also, almost all of her friends are just the most upsetting, cringy people that I've seen in a show in quite some time. They're not enjoyable. They're just cringy. So I gave that up, and I started watching Toradora instead.
Oh, hell yeah. I love that show.
Yeah, that show rips.
It's how far into it are you? Hold on.
Episode 8, I think.
Okay, it's gonna go some places, but you're gonna want to bear with it. There's gonna be a moment where you're like, I don't know if this is the right decision for these characters. You'll know when you get there.
Okay.
It'll work itself out. You just gotta, you'll find out.
I'll learn. Yeah, they just
You'll
introduced the model character.
Mm-hmm.
And they just had the pool episode. So
Yes.
that's
Have they gone to the beach yet?
No, they haven't gone to the beach yet. They haven't
Okay.
gone to a hot spring yet. I assume that's coming if it hasn't yet. No
Think
one's
so.
worn yukata yet, but I assume that's coming
That's
too.
definitely going to happen. Absolutely.
Yeah, the like
Yeah.
100% accuracy that you can guess what these plot beats are going to be. It's amazing. The show came out in 2008. It's amazing that like 15 years later, just all of these plot beats on every slice of life show. I know that it has to follow the Japanese school year, I guess, to a certain extent. But I mean, there aren't it's not like every single show about American schools follows the exact calendar the same way. You know, it's not like Hey Arnold, like they have the Christmas episode, but it's not like Hey Arnold had like the no, they did have Valentine's Day. They didn't have like St. Patrick's Day episodes or like, I guess they had Summer Vacation, but not like every season.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's just a little odd. I guess it's not odd. It's just maybe I could deal without knowing at least what 4 or 5 of the episodes are going to be. Just by knowing that the show has people with school uniforms.
Have we?
This is slice of life for you.
Yeah.
That's just how it go.
That's just how it be.
Have we reached a critical consensus on Chainsaw Man yet? Do I have to bother with that?
Oh,
It's
man.
a good show. I like it.
Is it?
Did you watch Chainsaw Man?
I watched season 1, I think. Whatever is available on Hulu, I watched.
Chainsaw Man is worth watching.
The animation's
at
very
least, yeah, at least like the first season. There will also come a turn with that one.
As there often is in anime.
Yes. And if you're not down for that, then you could stop. But I don't know. It's pretty good. Animation's good.
Yeah,
All right,
read
I'll
the
give it till the
manga.
turn, and then we'll decide whether we stick with it from there.
of the current season's shows, Spy Family good, Chainsaw Man also good,
yeah.
Zom 100 also pretty good.
What?
It's
What?
the zombie list of the dead. Bucket list of the dead. Zom 100.
Mhm.
It's
I
the
haven't watched
premise is it's a zombie apocalypse and a like dude who worked at a dead end job. The zombie apocalypse has freed him from his crappy job, and so now he's trying to achieve his bucket list of 100 things before he gets turned into a zombie.
Oh.
So it's a fun one. So yeah.
Have you watched Mob Psycho?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Mob Psycho is very good.
Mob Psycho is
Anyway.
good.
But yeah, Toradora, good. Check it out if you haven't already. It's an older show, but I'm happy that I've started watching an anime that has not just been like cringy and disappointing. So that's good. All right, without further ado, let's turn our attention to Moon Hunters. Perhaps there's a reason why we talked about other stuff for so long.
We always talk about stuff for a while. But this one in particular.
Pete, why don't you tell us
Yes.
a little bit about Moon Hunters?
I guess it falls on me. I did pick it. So I'll say what Moon Hunter says it is, and then we can say what it actually is. So Moon Hunters represents itself as a co-op personality test where anywhere between 1 and 4 players can go on a quest to discover themselves and find the moon, which has disappeared. So that's more or less the marketing copy.
Okay.
What you get is a 1 to 4 player co-op roguelite.
Yes.
Roguelite or roguelike? I always miss them up.
So the differentiator
It's
is generally whether your previous runs impact your future ones and make them easier. So a roguelite would be like Rogue Legacy, where you're just getting more health every run you do because you're leveling up your character. A roguelike is blank slate. So I think, Em, would you say there's a fuzzy gray area if there are unlocks?
yeah, I mean, Rogue Legacy has unlocks too. So I mean, it's in the name. I think that one counts as a rogue.
I'd
For
say this
this
one is a
one-
roguelike, not a roguelite, personally.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh man, I never should have picked this. This is way too confusing for me.
You can unlock new characters, but unlocking new characters and events doesn't make the game easier. It just unlocks
Yeah.
more content. Whereas like Hades, you're making your character stronger every
Yeah.
run you do because you're leveling up your health and stuff. That's a roguelite.
Okay.
We
But-
can say it has rogue-ish elements.
That it does
Prefer?
100%. So, as you said, Pete, do you think, as the game represents itself, that it in any way is a personality test?
No. So basically what happens is you encounter people and they ask you questions. So like one of them was some kid was arguing with his tutor and the tutor like turns to you and they're like, what's more important, happiness or duty? And you're like, oh God, I don't know, happiness. Then you're like, foolish. And then you get a reputation for foolishness. Or somebody's like, oh, these mean kids came along and they threw my necklace into this lake and now this giant crocodile has it. Do you fight with the crocodile or do you bow to the crocodile and let it keep its trinkets? And you're like, I'm going to fight that crocodile. And then you get a reputation for bravery. And what this amounts to is it's basically like a skill check where you can either accomplish other tasks later on, like, you need a patient attribute to, consult this tree. And these are all things that happen, by the way. I'm not just picking things at random. And then at the end of the game, they tell a story about your character and these traits come through. That's basically what it amounts to, yeah?
Yes, and also, in addition to like getting those traits, which are like wise, foolish, brave, which are kind of character traits that will get you over trait checks, you will get stats as well, like wisdom and strength and endurance, and those stats also will go up depending on the choices you make, and they impact your combat efficacy in addition to being related to skill checks. So if you are a magical character, because this game has multiple classes, I believe wisdom increases your magic damage dealt, but strength increases your physical damage dealt. So if you're a magic user, you want wisdom. If you're a physical attack user, you want strength, which means that for a lot of runs, I found that while the game is saying it's a personality test, well, if I'm a magic user, I'm going to pick the thing that gives me wisdom, right? Like that's the right choice for combat efficacy. Early on I did that. I then quickly found out that beating the final boss of the game is so trivial that it doesn't actually matter what you pick. So if you want to see more content, that's totally fine. But if you're trying to min-max your character, there are definitely routes that each of the playable characters kind of feel like they should go down.
So what I was kind of hoping for when I picked this game was one of two things. One was sort of like a gamification of the Myers-Briggs, which I don't necessarily take seriously as a personality or communication assessment, but just as like a weird thing to do for yourself. It's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Or the second thing that came to mind. So I'm going to share a little bit about myself right now. I hope y'all will accept me for who I am.
All right,
I know.
I will judge you accordingly.
Shun.
I'm waiting for it. So I was single for a very long time in an area of the country not known for having a whole bunch of eligible women for dating. So I was on OkCupid for a very long time, which a lot of people are. And I found that I got no dates through OkCupid. I'm willing to admit that. But I did really enjoy taking like personality questions. So I ended up doing a couple hundred of those for no real reason other than just learning about myself. So I was hoping for something closer to that. Like they would just ask you these weird questions. You'd have to answer them and it would do something in the game, which we kind of got. But it was just like, compassion or bravery. What do you want right now?
Yeah, what was the other thing that you were hoping for? That was one.
Those were the two.
Okay, the
Myers-Briggs or like OkCupid. The way OkCupid worked is they basically gave you like a weird scenario. Mm-hmm. And they were like, what would your answer be in this one? Some of them were more straightforward. Like, oh, do you like... I'm trying to think of one now. Like,
do you like a sweet?
Yeah, or do you like a quiet night at home or a night on the town?
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that.
Okay.
It was just hundreds of these user-generated questions, basically, which they then compared to other people, and then you could like rate your like answer, like, is this really important to you or does this not matter at all? And then that's how they like matched you with other people.
Okay. Well, this game does not do any of that, it turns out.
No.
Like,
no, it does not.
The problem is this game wants you to get those stats so that you can trigger events. And if you keep giving your honest answer on multiple playthroughs, because like a run of this game takes like maybe 40 minutes to an hour, I'd guess, to go through one run. And if you just keep making the same choices, you will just see the same events play out exactly the same way. And that means you won't finish the game probably. Or like you won't get new endings or see more content. You're just going to see the same game, which in a roguelike sucks.
Not great.
It's not great.
There was one of the personality checks that I found very funny almost every time it happened though, and that was the one for compassion. It's like very often you'd stumble upon like a grisly scene of some sort. A lot of times it's like animals. Like, oh, somebody killed this snake. And then if you didn't meet the check, it would say, a more compassionate person would care. And then you wander off.
Yep. Yeah, and even with those things, like, if you have the compassion, you heal the snake, and it becomes a sidekick that follows you around for a little bit, and it kind of sucks. Like they die quick. Combatant, they die quick. Or like, you know, sometimes you'll have the wisdom to like notice a thing, and all that really does is like give you a few extra points.
Or some opals.
Yeah.
Tangential question. Mm-hmm. Did you ever figure out a way to talk to animals?
No,
I did.
I never found that person. You did?
You did?
I did. Yeah. So
was it worth the time it took to look for it?
I did it accidentally. So it was
yes.
So yeah, it was worth it. But the animals have almost nothing interesting to say.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Most of
Neither
them are
do the spirits.
like you talk to a camel, and the camel's like, I think I accidentally destroyed the moon when I
Whoa.
spat yesterday or something, and it's like, no, you didn't. You're just a dumb camel. Or like, you can talk to some of the animals that are in the starting villages, and they will join you as a sidekick if you can talk to them. But they tend to suck. Like, they don't do combat stuff. I don't know what they do.
Camels known for their fierce and mighty ways?
The camel won't join you. The yak who joins you does not attack on your behalf, that I noticed.
Do you think all camels use the same pickup line?
What is the pickup line?
Want a hump?
And that's been Deep Listens this week. Thank you, everyone. Tip your server.
Nailed it.
Yep.
Nailed it. Way to go. Yeah, so like the camels, the birds, the cats and things that you can talk to, they don't really seem to do that much. So the way you unlock that, if you care to, is there's a person who tells you that they're if you start in the forest village, there's a character who tells you that their kid was kidnapped and they think that Baba Yaga took her. If you go into a forest that it says Baba Yaga is there, like you'll get an option when you pick, like how a run starts is you start on a nondescript battlefield. You do a couple of fights. You go to your starting village. The moon does not rise when it's supposed to be a full moon night. And then you get to pick hex grids, basically. And each hex you pick has different encounters, different items that can be dropped there. Sometimes there's special encounters that you can run into. And then you do this for like 3 more days, and then you have to fight the final boss. And each location you pick advances time. So yeah, you can find a forest hex that has Baba Yaga. If you go there, she's got a cat that will always spawn around where her house is. If you talk to the cat and I think you feed it, or it'll offer to come with you when you encounter Baba Yaga. If you accept the cat's help, the cat will then kill Baba Yaga for you and teach you how to speak to animals. Otherwise, she'll always escape.
How big is this cat?
It's not a big cat, but Baba Yaga's old. It's an old woman.
So, no wonder I didn't figure out where this was.
Did you not go to the forests?
And do all that.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured out how to talk to spirits.
I didn't figure out how to talk. How do you talk to spirits? I never got
God,
that.
I've already forgotten. No, I remember. So you like have to fight this werewolf, basically.
Oh, okay. I saw that werewolf and I didn't fight him. I was like, it seems like these spirits suck.
Yeah, kind of.
Keep them trapped.
I don't know that they've ever contributed anything to one of my runs. But yeah, if you kill the werewolf, you get the ability to talk to spirits.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that in this game. And we haven't really talked about what the combat is like, or you start a run, you pick one of, at first, 4 character archetypes. There's kind of a melee, blade dancer-y guy. There's a dryad sort of guy who can transform into a wolf.
Yeah, shoot leaves out of his hands.
Yeah, there's a ranged magic user, and then there's a person with a spear, and you can eventually unlock a few more.
Blood laser.
Yeah, and a blood laser. So once you pick a character, you then...
Gino, I'm sorry, just to round it out, I'll say the other 2, or the other 3, actually. So one is a songstress who plays melodies that buff your party or hurt the enemy, sort of like an AoE effect. Mm-hmm. Another one is an ice mage who can shoot ice and skate around the map, move very quickly, and summon ice dragons. And the last one is one of the sun cultists who can conjure fire and meteors and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they are the antagonists of the game. The
sun cultists.
Yeah, the sun cultists. You are moon cultists, and you are good and right, and the sun cultists are wrong and bad. And
which is
so
wild.
Yeah, the sun's out more than the moon.
Actually. And it's more useful generally. Like, who's anti-sun?
I guess.
Why have you guys played this more than I did?
Mm-hmm.
Did we learn why the sun is bad in this cosmology?
Kind of. So, like, the sun, all right. Spoilers abound, so everybody strap in. So the final boss you fight is the King of the Sun Cultists.
Right.
And turns out he's actually the sun god. And him, in my understanding, him and the moon god had a thing back in the day, and it ended badly. And as a result, he's just going to burn down the universe.
Gods are so capricious, am I right?
Yeah, right. Like sort of a Zeus situation. If he's turning into a swan and having sex with humans, this guy's just burning down the universe.
Yeah, so like,
Okay.
and you can miss all of this very easily. Like you have to replay these runs a lot of times to get a lot of these story beats and unlock all the content necessary to finish the game with the good endings. But like when it comes to picking your character, I think there's just a clear power hierarchy.
Yep.
Like the Blade Dancer is the worst character by a lot. Did you find that as well?
I mean, the songstress is only good for co-op, really. So I mean, that's
I
not
found
really
the
her fault.
songstress to just be the most powerful character I had.
Really? Did you? I found the purple ranged one to be the strongest.
Yeah, that's what I was using most.
Yeah, I found purple ranged one and stabby spear one to be of a similar power level. But the songstress, did you ever hit the buttons instead of just mashing out the same button multiple times? Did you ever try alternating buttons?
Alternating.
So like hit attack and then block and then special?
Yeah, I mean, I did some of that. I think my issue is probably like I never upgraded.
Oh, okay.
Like to be able to play more notes.
That's the thing, is like if you can play a lot of notes, like if you press her so there's 3 buttons basically. There's an attack button, a defense button, and a special button, and those 3 buttons will be different for each character. So like the Blade Dancer just does a melee attack. If you press his attack button, his special is an AoE stomp that like knocks people away, and then his dodge is like a dash. For the songstress, you basically have, depending on which attack you hit, you can have 2 or 3 notes that you can play. So the first note will always be the first button you press, and then you can press it again to do like a follow-up, or you can press another button. So if you press like attack and then special, the move will be a regular attack and then a AoE attack that like does damage over time. If you do a attack and then a defense, I think it like knocks people back. If you do special and then attack, she summons 3 like balls of energy that will come down and deal massive damage to anything they hit. If you do special, then defense, it gives you a shield that makes you like invincible.
Okay, this was definitely a personal skill issue. I no longer blame the songstress.
Yeah, if you do defense and then special, you get a speed buff that just buffs you buffs you for a temporary amount of time. So I found that just the songstress, if you did the proper combos, just had access to everything. Like these other characters, sometimes there are situations they can't get out of. The songstress just had an answer for everything. You just needed to upgrade a few times.
Yeah, that's sort of, so the purple, I think the ritualist is the purple one. Basically, you just do the same thing with the ritualist every time. Is you just launch the like black hole that sucks enemies in and freezes them
at them. Yep.
Yeah, and then you just shoot energy
at distance.
Balls.
Yeah. Yep. And each of these characters, like the ritualist dodge is a teleport, which is, I think, the best dodge in the game, because just warping away from the enemies that are chasing you is
it's
better
hard to
than
beat a teleport.
Yeah, like the druid can turn into a wolf, but the wolf form just kind of runs slightly faster than the other form, so it's not that great. And you've got a health bar and an energy bar. The special attacks and the dodges will take energy. Your basic attack will not. Did y'all like the Lancer?
Yeah, I mean the blood laser was good.
Used there.
I liked her basic attack because it's when you do it, it knocks enemies back, and she takes a step back as well. So it just maintained distance really well, which meant that enemies just never touched me for the most part. How was the Sun Cultist and the Ice character? I did not unlock those.
Yeah. The Ice one's cool mostly for the skating around aspect. Like once that novelty sort of wears off, if you just want to optimize your gameplay, you're probably better off with one of the other ones. The Sun Cultist is interesting because he leaves flames, which if you're just sort of doing a solo run, works pretty well. But unfortunately, if you're doing any co-op, the flames also hurt your other party members.
Oh.
Yeah, and like when you scale up, like these flames scale with your magic. I think it's your magic. So like as you start laying more and more flames, it becomes a real inconvenience for your other party members.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what we've just said about all these nuances of the characters and their little specialties, they don't matter hardly at all because the
Just
game's
shoot
not
things.
hard.
No.
Yeah.
I found so at one point I had a character who had a reputation for courage, and before the final boss, you'll kind of get a different person greeting you. Like there'll be kind of a final dialogue moment where you'll get some buffs or something. Did you see a few of those different options with different runs?
Well, with the different buffs?
Yeah, so like right before you fight the final boss, there's kind of like a group of people who you can talk to, usually. Did you notice?
I remember that tool kid who was like, hey, I bet you could beat the boss with both arms tied behind your back. And you're like, yeah, man, totally could. And he's like, cool, minus 20 to all your stats.
Yes, that was exactly what I was going to say. I had courage, and that kid was like, I bet you could beat the boss with an arm tied behind your back. And then he ties your arm behind your back, and I still beat him with minus 20 to all of my stats. And I was like, oh,
you're like, wow. I knew it.
I'm even worse than when I started, and I still took no damage from the final boss. This is completely trivial.
There's like one, to see like the true ending, the like good ending, so to speak, you do need to win an endless mode. It's not really endless, but it's like a boss rush almost. That's a non-trivial boss battle. That's probably like the most difficult the game gets. But like even then, once you learn the patterns, it's not going to take you forever.
No. Did you see any of the other encounters? So there's that kid. Did you get any of the other ones?
I mean, after that kid, I was like, I'm not speaking to anybody ever again.
Oh.
No, I don't. I talked to more people. I don't. He's the only one I like legitimately remember.
Okay, there was one with wisdom where my character like met the spirits of their ancestors and they gave you support and that gave like big buffs. There was one where my character was really horny, really flirtatious.
A reputation for seduction?
Yeah, if you get a reputation for seduction, then some of the characters from other villages will show up and they all offer to make out with you. Nice. And you can make out with all of them, and then you get and you can make out with the merchant woman. And she gives you opals, I think.
I know there's an ending where you just elope with the final boss. Is that how you do it?
So yeah, okay. I made out with all of them, and then when you get to the final boss fight, the final boss is like, "Hey, good looking," and then you can also go, "Hey, good looking," and then you opt out of fighting the boss, and the end of the game is just like, and then these two were never seen again.
Okay. I guess that solves it.
I mean, the ending when the Sun Cultists win, not that terrible, honestly.
What do they do?
They institute like an empire of advanced technology. And like, I know, right? Like, there's no moon.
Is there a downside?
Not really.
The moon cultists are bummed. I mean, if the moon cultists win, they banish the sun cultists forever, and then are bummed that the moon doesn't come back.
I will say, like, the technological empire sounds like a little fascisty. But like everything in this game sounds a little fascisty, so at least we got cool tech.
Yeah, and like as you play the game, you will unlock more locations you can go to. So you start with just kind of a desert village and a forest village. You'll eventually unlock I think a snow village, a water swamp village, a kind of high plains or mountainous village. And each of them are villages where these characters are supposed to originate from. And man, I had to play a lot of playthroughs to unlock that basic stuff. And the playthroughs all felt the same. And that's a big problem for a roguelike.
Yeah, even like it says it's procedurally generated, but mostly it's just like, okay, how many like trees are going to outline this big open space we're going to shoot things in? There's not a lot of variety to the areas, and there's even less variety to the combat, which I think is an even bigger issue for a roguelite.
Yeah, for sure. It's just not that difficult. You need some amount of challenge, otherwise you're just actually doing the exact same thing over and over and over again.
The combat, it never seemed like there was like more enemies than any other like encounter with like 3 wolves or something. Like maybe there's 5 snakes, but I was never at a point where I was like, oh, there's like a ton of enemies around. I'm now nervous. Are there more enemies if you play in multiplayer?
Yes, it does scale with your party.
Okay, because that was one of the things I was like, if it doesn't scale, then what is the point of Yeah, exactly.
Even more of a joke.
Yeah. Okay, so at least there's that.
But yeah, I mean, I wandered around. Like, you can get some unique locations that tend to just give you free experience points and opals. But you only get
Around
3 days.
Yeah, and around one of the days, like day 3, at like the midpoint, the sun cultists start burning areas down.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to like a burnt out area, there's even less than there was before.
Yeah, so like being around forests by day 3 kind of is a bummer because the forest events tend to not be there anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's a game that is trying to do personality test stuff, but actually you need to pick all of the options if you want to see all the content. So you're not actually making a choice that's reflective of you and your values, and you're seeing the same events over and over again. I found that by like run 2 or 3, I was seeing stuff repeat. So I was just picking the other options simply because I hadn't seen it before, not because I, had a unique opinion or a different change. It was just like, I guess I need to see what happens if I choose this one.
Yeah, roguelite seems like a weird choice if you want to have like a deep dive into personality. Because like you're going to crank through the same stuff at least a few times, especially one like we said, the runs are pretty short.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know. I mean, you make the game you make, but it seemed like a weird choice to not go for like, okay, we're going to make a single longer run. So these choices are like at least personally reflective.
Or just having more content so that stuff's not cycling quite as fast. But yeah, it's a game that has some combat ideas that I think are interesting, but the difficulty's so low that it doesn't ultimately matter that much. It's got this decision-making system, but unfortunately all the decisions don't really amount to much because, they either gate skill checks, so you'll have to try again later if you don't have the appropriate thing at the appropriate time as well. Like, it's possible that you encounter a skill check that you will have the skill for in 2 days, but you don't have it right now, so that skill check just fails. So you'll have to do another run.
It doesn't seem like there's any way to go back either.
There
so
isn't.
You just like miss the opportunity at that time, like, and then you just have to maybe come across it again in another run, which there's no guarantee it's ever going to come back around. So you could have like, there's like a cave that I came across that was just like surrounded with bodies. And I was like, this seems messed up. And then I looked at the cave and it was like, you're not brave enough to go in here.
You coward.
Like, I guess I'm never going to know what's in there.
What's in there is a little bit of money.
Okay.
And
that's the other thing. The rewards of doing it are just like, here's some opals.
And the opals,
and you're like, okay, cool.
There's an unlock system where you can buy upgrades for your characters. That's what opals do for you. But I don't know what the point of opals... Like, you can upgrade, but the game's not difficult enough for the upgrades to matter all that much either. So the game throws opals at you. And you're just kind of hoping that the vendors are selling the abilities that you want, because there are more than 4 possible abilities, but each vendor only sells 4. So sometimes you just get offered bad upgrades, and so it's just not worth buying them, which kind of sucks. I feel like this game is hindered by being a roguelike at every turn. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I get the premise, right? So like the game has some interesting things to say about like storytelling and social reality.
Mm-hmm.
So like the whole idea is like this is part of a culture that's telling these legends, and anyone who knows anything about oral tradition, you know that these legends change over time. So that's the justification for these continuous runs, right? Like you're basically reliving these ancient legends that slowly shift with each retelling. So like there's some cool ideas about storytelling and how like our storytelling shapes reality and how like reality shapes the story in this weird feedback loop. But I mean, there's not enough sort of like dialogue or like story beats to really, flesh that out.
Yeah, and you know, I think if they had authored like 6 or 7 runs, where each run you are given a character and it plays out some of the events that align with that character or something like that, this might have been a better experience for me, at least. If they had chosen, okay, you're a character who's about wisdom, you start with higher wisdom, you'll get the wisdom skill checks, you'll get a bunch of stuff that's wisdom relevant, and when you're done, you've seen the wisdom run,
Yeah.
and then take out the randomness, because the problem is the way the game is right now, you can start a wisdom run, and if you just don't move around the map in such a way that you get the wisdom skill checks, you're just you wasted that run. Like you built a character who could have achieved a few of the like end game states, but maybe you just weren't presented them at all.
There's
ahead.
a similarly interesting story about like legends to tell in that context too. Like basically the premise there would be, okay, there was this real world cataclysmic event. In this case, it was the moon disappearing. And now you're looking at, okay, how did all these different cultures tell a story about this cataclysmic event that would make sense within their cosmology? So like the ritualists told this story about wisdom, and the blade dancers told this story about courage. And like then you can see how they all combine to explain how and why the moon disappeared. And then presumably reappeared.
And then, you could even from a gameplay perspective go like, okay, here's how the druids told the story. So you start as the druid in the druid village. Because the way it is right now, you can pick any character and then start at any village. So if you pick a character like the blade dancer and you start them in the druid village, you'll see the druid there. He's still there. And you can talk to him and he'll that's how you unlock the, one of the unlockable skins is by talking to the character who you're not playing. And then meeting them at a campfire. But it just leads to these weird non sequiturs where like, how did a blade dancer get to this village? What's going on here? Because you get a different reaction if you're the character who's supposed to be in the village as opposed to the characters who aren't. So yeah, it's just kind of all over the place. Like good ideas for sure. And I really appreciated the concept of like this changing story. Like, and what did you think of the epilogue, the like variable epilogue, depending on how you played?
So I only saw maybe 2 of these, which was, I don't even remember. There is one where the moon just doesn't come back and you go about your business, I guess. Unclear if there are any repercussions of that. And then I know there's another ending where you run off with the final boss and you're never seen again. I assume there's one where the moon comes back, but I never found that one.
There is. So the way I got to it is,
are there other ones?
You die and the sun cultists take over.
Yeah, and there's a synthesis kind of. The sun cultists and the moon cultists get along.
Yeah. And then there's the moon comes back and tells you to forgive the sun cultists as she forgives the sun god. And then everybody lives happily ever after.
Yeah, so that's the true ending. And
Hey.
What I meant with the epilogues was more like the text scrawl that you get, kind of explaining your character and what they did. Like, what'd you think of that?
I totally forgot about that. God, I don't even remember what I got when I did it.
That's about right.
I guess I didn't. It didn't matter. Is basically what it comes down to. I don't know if there was anything important that came out of those.
Not really.
They were just like, here's what you did. You
Pretty much.
kind of
You
just
can
sucked.
you can save characters to reuse in like that endless battle mode I referred to earlier. So if you have like a really kick-ass mage, you can be like, oh, that's the character I want to use in this endless battle. But the text scrolls are mostly just like fun little tidbits. Like I had a character with really high constitution, and they were like, he became a professional poison tester. I'm like, that sounds like a weird job, but okay.
The thing that was weird for me was like there were some times where in the final summation of my character, it said that my character did a feat that they like failed at. Like I did the skill check and I failed, and then it still brought it up. Like, and then I heard that they defeated the bloody monster in the cave, and it's like I tried to go in the cave and I couldn't. Oh, you see, Pete, stories can sometimes be fallible because we humans are fallible. Sometimes the narrator can be unreliable.
That's a clutch way to justify that.
Or the game didn't process the skill check right. I don't really know.
My wonder is if you had enough bravery by the end to have passed that skill check, and there was some like weird time disconnect.
Maybe, but that's the thing is like your characters, there are some, so at the end you'll get aligned with a constellation. And if you have a character who roughly fits into the same archetype as another character, you have to choose which of those characters is like the archetype. So think like in Katamari Damacy, right? When you're making
our new official game of the
constellation.
podcast.
Yes. When you're making a constellation and then you replay the level and you make a better version of that constellation, that old constellation gets blown the hell away and then the new one gets put in its place. That's kind of what happens here.
So you delete your previous like story from existence?
Yep.
Okay.
So like if you have two people who are flirtatious, one of them is going to be the Rose constellation and you get to pick which one lives and which one dies.
That's strange.
And there's not that many archetypes at the end of the day that I saw. I only got like 2 or 3. It's pretty easy to accidentally end up in one of the ones that you've already completed.
Yeah, there's more than 2 or 3. I don't know the exact number, but it definitely is very easy to get overlap.
Don't flirt if you don't want to end up the Rose, basically, ever. Like, if you flirt even a little bit, sometimes the game will be like, hey.
Ooh, very seductive.
Seems like you're the seductive type.
It feels like we're getting close to the end now. There's one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about.
Yeah, you want to talk about how we find the final boss? Or
oh, no, not even a little bit. That's not what I wanted to talk about.
I'll cover that after you talk about what you want to talk about.
So there's this like weird tradition in literature, I guess you could say it's probably in a whole bunch of other stuff, paintings, whatnot, of gendering celestial bodies. And typically it always goes the same way, which it does in this game as well. Moon woman, sun man. Right? And I have some theories.
Incorrect. The sun and the moon are lesbians.
That would be much more interesting. I can't think of a lesbian-focused cosmology off the top of my head, though. There must be one.
It's this one.
Regardless, I have theories for why this might be the case, but I'm curious if y'all do. I've done no research into this, so
excellent.
I can't say whether or not it's true. Any ideas? Or should I share mine?
Go for it.
I'm just going to go with our current society is patriarchal, and therefore the big fireball that makes everything warm and is up most of the time is associated with the gender that has traditionally had more power.
It's a good guess, Gino. You're probably right. I'm going to give 2 much more specific ones.
Okay.
That, I don't know, struck my brain. So I think one of them is the additional historical association between the cycles of the moon and the menstrual cycle.
Oh, yep, that's a good one.
Yep. Now, I don't know what order it happened in, whether moon woman first or menstrual cycle, moon cycle connection first, but I definitely think there's something there. Second, Gino, fitting with your theme of the patriarchy, I don't know if ancient people knew this, but I mean, the moon's light comes from the sun, right? Like the moon isn't its own thing. So it's basically like a passive recipient of the sun's grace and majesty. So again, passivity, receptivity, these traditional, quote unquote feminine values, it's easy to see how the sun would be characterized as a woman in that sense. Those are my two theories, at least.
The moon wouldn't even exist if it didn't get one of the sun's ribs.
Damn right. Actually, they think it was a Mars-sized planet that collided with Earth, and the moon's the resultant coalition of, the crash materials.
When one planet and an asteroid love each other very much.
Another bonus fun fact for you. Moon, second densest satellite in the solar system among satellites we know the densities of.
What is the densest?
Io.
Okay. That is a Jupiter moon?
Yeah, I think it's Saturn.
Or Saturn moon.
Or is it Jupiter? Did you say Jupiter?
I know it's one of Saturn or Jupiter. I don't know which.
Jupiter has like 1 million moons. It's probably Jupiter.
It's got too many moons. Yeah, so I think that is a fair cosmology. I think those are two good reads, Pete. And Did you have any thoughts on why sun guy, moon girl?
Well, it's wrong because
the
sun and moon are lesbians, as I've already stated.
They're just roommates who've lived together for 60 years.
They have a torrid will they, won't they, as they chase each other across the sky.
And a few times a year, they sync up.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is glorious.
And everyone's horrified.
And it's either the best thing to happen or the worst thing to happen, depending on your interpretation of it. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just a meme on the internet. And I'm not sure why they decided that, but I ascribe to it. So I'm not going to investigate further.
Hey, you got to make your choice. You made yours. I respect it.
So the and if you want to get the final boss, like the super secret synthesis ending, so when you start a run, there's a person who's like chiseling a statue, and they'll say something like, "Whenever I want to see the end of the game, I walk towards the great sage," or it's always one of the four main constellations. Like each of the four villages is aligned with one of these four deities, and each of those four deities is aligned with one of the cardinal directions. So whichever character, they'll say two deities, and then what you have to do is just move in that direction. So if they tell you to go southwest, or if they tell you two gods, one of them's going to be either north or south, one of them's going to be east or west, and then you just need to pick locations in that general direction, and eventually you'll either reach the northeastmost point, southwestmost point, and then there'll be a special map for that location. You then need to input a sequence. If you talk to some of the sages in the villages, when you're wise, they'll tell you, hey, there's this combination basically of like new moon, full moon, waxing moon, and if you were to put that in on a special dial, the moon deity will help you. And so I did that. One thing I will say, I accidentally put in the wrong sequence once, and if you put in the wrong sequence, it locks you out. I just restarted my game at that point, and it saved before I input the commands, so I was able to get it done. But I thought that was a bit of a bummer that I had to restart the game.
Yeah, the one time I died was when I failed to put in the sequence. Then the boss is actually kind of tough if you get there early.
I got there early, but I put in the sequence, and so the boss was trivial. And then you basically do the synthesis ending where everyone gets along and the moon comes back and the sun cultists and the moon cultists live happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best ending?
Yep, that's the true ending.
There's like an additional one if you complete that endless mode, where it like just gives you a little bit more like backstory and talks about forgiveness and stuff.
I will say the writing in the game, when there is more bespoke writing, is generally good.
Yeah, like the cutscenes, like especially for the bad ending, when they like explain all the stuff that happens, it sounds bad and it's like presented interestingly. The like narration's cool, but it's only like five scenes.
Yeah, and the music's pretty good in this game. The pixely art style was very in vogue when this game came out, and it is of a piece. I think it's good. It's just that I've seen a lot of games in this style. This game reminded me of like 2 or 3 other side-scrolling beat 'em ups that we've played, at least.
It reminded me of one of our many Viking games. I couldn't tell you which one though.
There's definitely a Viking game in there. Reminded me of Legend of Zelda Four Swords, if you remember that one.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where you had to like have people on different screens doing stuff.
Yeah, you had your 4 friends, or I guess your 3 friends and you. Yeah, so that one probably is better.
Pete, as the only person who I think was able to play this multiplayer, did you get more out of it? Would you recommend this game for people as a couch co-op game?
I mean, it's not bad, right? Like we said some things about this game. Like it's got some cool stuff. It's got some interesting things. It's got a whole lot of problems that we already talked about. So like if you ask me, like if you already have this game, definitely play it in co-op. Just because like co-op games are generally, I would say, more fun, depending on the game. But like if you're looking for a game to play with 3 of your closest friends, you could probably pick something else.
How does co-op handle events? Does everyone get a crack at making a choice, or is one person the main character and they get to choose?
So you have a team leader. It's whoever has like the highest leadership value at the moment. So like it can swap throughout the story. And then when you hit a story beat, each person gets to pick their choice. So it seemed to me like it was majority rules, but like every once in a while it seemed like they just went with the leader's decision. So I'm not sure what the exact like algorithm is. Maybe I'm just like recalling things incorrectly. That's definitely a possibility. But everybody does get to make a choice. And then the people who make the correct choice for those like variable ones, they get the bonus.
Okay.
Unless only one character gets the bonus, and then one character gets the bonus. It's slightly confusing.
Okay, so everyone is at least getting the buffs.
Yes, if they choose correctly, yes.
Okay.
Is there a correct answer to most of these questions, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like there's like one was like the wind spirit, and you like go to her altar, and you're like you can give her opals or food. And like if you give her opals, she's like, "What am I supposed to do with these stupid shiny rocks? I can't even eat them." And then if you give her food, she's like, "Nice food," and then you get buffs.
Yeah, and if you give her opals, she'll be like, "What am I supposed to do with these shiny rocks?" And you can go like, you could exchange them for goods and services. And she's like, "No, I'm a wind spirit. Why would I?" No.
Yeah, she's like, bail.
No,
Opals
I'm not
could
investing.
be used to purchase many foods.
Yes.
Explain how.
Yeah, so it is a bummer when there's just a wrong choice, I will say. Because then you have to do a whole other run so you can pick the right choice.
Yep.
When it comes down to it, I think this is a game with a lot of good ideas, most of which are undermined by the format they chose, unfortunately. There's just not enough content for multiple runs, but the game's story requires you to do multiple runs.
It could have been like a very interesting, like Rashomon sort of like deal where you're seeing like this story from many different people's perspectives, but it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, it turns out that the game is too samey, so even when they're doing that across the multiple runs, it ends up feeling like the same, like a kind of lame. You're just getting multiple vantage points of half-completed runs, more than feeling like you're getting a bespoke story each time.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
The very first screen you get to when you open the game up, there's like a weird like spirit realm situation. What happens in that area? Is that where you like see your past runs?
Oh, you mean like when you boot the game?
Yeah, like right. Literally, the first thing you see is like your spirit. There's like a goddess. I was like, maybe this will have more explanation, and then it didn't seem like it did.
Yeah, it's basically for like 3 things. One is it's a place where you can like store old characters. So like you can go back and like say, oh, like there's Jerry from Run 4. It's where you can enact that like endless battle mode that I talked about before, and it also like stores your buffs. So like if you learn how to talk to spirits, there's like a spot in there. It's like, oh, this is the spirit talking spot.
So you can get those buffs again from there?
Like if you learn how to talk to spirits, you can always talk to spirits.
It's unlocked forever.
Yeah.
All subsequent runs will have it.
I see.
But yeah, I mean, it's mostly just like a fancy menu.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They make you waddle around so that you can pick new game instead of just picking it from a menu.
Yeah, that was a decision.
It confused me for a bit. I was like, what am I supposed to...
Where do I go?
How do I start the game? I kept hitting start expecting there to be a new game thing, and it's like, no, you have to walk around on this tiny little floating island and then walk over to new game.
Yeah.
Just like in Katamari Damacy.
Game of the year.
All right. Any final thoughts on Moon Hunters?
Nah, I mean, like we said, it's got some cool ideas, but it's flawed in a few ways. But props to anybody who makes a thing. We always like to say that.
Yeah, there's good ideas here. I just wish that they were combined in a slightly different way.
Yep.
In the time it took us to talk about it, you could have played like a run.
You could have.
So,
just
try
one
it
final
out.
question from me. Do you think if they just dialed up the combat difficulty, it would have alleviated some of our concerns?
Absolutely. If the combat was actually like hard, like not even hard, just like if there was anything to the combat, then there would be a reason to like get upgrades, and you would actually have a reason to care about what stats you are upgrading instead of just like, I haven't seen this side thing, so I'm just going to pick this so that I fill out my knowledge of the story, I guess. Because as it stands, you could just pick anything and you'll probably feel okay with it, or as we mostly felt, lukewarm about it. Like, yeah, I think that was definitely a avenue that could improve this one. I mean, not procedurally generating the entire middle part of the game is also an option. Having more like, I
Offered
guess,
experience.
curated experiences. This is the pitfalls of, completely, leaving it open to whatever the AI decides, or, not AI, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, the algorithm, whatever it is.
The algorithm, yes.
That is definitely the moment-to-moment gameplay could have been more compelling.
Mhm.
Like, I think the bones of a good combat system are here. It's just if you make your characters so much more powerful than the threats, you don't ever really need to engage with it. Like, some of these characters just felt like everyone can get the job done, so I didn't need to min-max, and I didn't really need to understand how to use most of these characters super well, because I could just slop through anything.
Mhm.
All right, with that, I think that'll wrap up on Moon Hunters, which means, Em, it is your turn to pick once again.
It's my turn to pick, and I'm going to make a snap decision here at the end of the show because I didn't decide in advance.
Always our best choices are made at the end of the show.
Okay, I could pick something that is, how would I even describe this?
I like it already.
I could pick something that is dark in a dark way or dark in a silly way.
Ooh,
Which would you prefer?
Dark and silly or dark and dark?
The problem with the dark and silly is you might veto it due to certain things that we might be playing later in the year. And the Dark and Dark one you might veto because of things we played last year that you don't want to experience again.
Nice. Only give me the bad news, none of the good news.
Yeah. So these are your options.
Well, both of them sound vetoable, so why don't you just float both of the actual things and...
Okay, so the Dark and Dark one, I want to play the Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader game, which is a CRPG-ish thing that is very Warhammer. So if you know anything about Warhammer...
I don't.
Okay, if you don't...
I do. It's bleak as hell.
Grimdark future.
I mean, it's called Warhammer.
Yes. So we could dive into that and give you a first hand look at a horrible side of the 41st millennium, which is all sides of it. Or we could play a gritty and edgy game that ties into another game that we are going to definitely have to play later this year.
Oh my god! I think I know what you're going to say. Say it. Say it.
So we could play Shadow the Hedgehog in preparation for Sonic 06.
Oh man, these are both great options. These are both great choices. Boy, oh boy.
I will say, if we don't pick one of them, I might just pick the other one later.
I mean, how do you turn down a hedgehog with a gun?
Yeah.
He does have it's a shooter. Oh my god.
I was going to wait until like we were on the very cusp of having to play Sonic and then be like, Sonic, what about Shadow? And I think we're there. We only have 3 more people until
That's true. It's possible that by the time people hear this, we are going to be in Sonic 06 hell, because I think I did the Game of the Year's coming out soon. Boy, oh boy. I want to play both of those.
Yep.
So no veto here.
Yay.
It's just the order. I feel like Warhammer is having it's more in the zeitgeist right this moment.
So we probably shouldn't pick it as per Deep Listen's protocol.
Because when have we ever picked something when it was relevant?
Sea of Stars won a bunch of Game of the Year stuff right after we picked it.
Moonhunter came out 7 years ago.
Yeah. And people
one's mentioned it since.
People are talking about it more and more. Boy, I think, let me see if Warhammer, so that would be a PC only, or is it on consoles too?
I don't know if it's on consoles. I think it's on Steam, because that's what I play it on.
It is definitely on Steam.
I don't know if it's on...
It's not on sale right now.
Oh.
Maybe it was on sale before. The only thing I'll say is Rogue Trader is a $50 game that came out a month ago.
Yes.
And maybe we can get it on sale later if we want to be price conscious. Whereas Shadow the Hedgehog is a PS2 game.
Yeah.
So it might be easier to find a loose copy of.
They also describe in this IGN article that it's ultra crunchy and 130 hours, which might be an overestimation.
What is that?
I don't.
Warhammer is?
Yes, that's Warhammer.
I'm not playing 100. I'm going to be straight with you now. I'll definitely play Warhammer. I'm not playing 130 hours in 2 weeks.
I don't know where they're getting that number from. I don't think it's that long.
I think Shadow the Hedgehog is more finishable.
Okay.
So why don't we keep Warhammer on the side burner?
Put that in our back pocket.
We'll
for
put
like
that
a
on
4-week or 4-episode Warhammer marathon.
We'll see once Warhammer goes on sale or something, whereas Shadow the Hedgehog is for the people. On the
this
PS2.
one's for you, the listener.
Yes. Oh, God. We need to tell the Off the Deep End people because they might want to get in on this.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you for your excellent options and your excellent selection, M, of Shadow the Hedgehog.
It's gonna
Man,
be
this
it's
logo.
gonna be interesting to say the least.
I
You know what-
forgot about the logo.
You know what I was wondering a couple days ago? How soon, or let me rephrase the question. How many characters do you think they would have to get up to before Shadow the Hedgehog made it on the Smash Bros. Roster?
Oh boy.
Is he not a alternate skin for Sonic yet?
Maybe. I haven't
doesn't
checked all the
count.
skins, but it doesn't
Okay,
change
okay.
the moveset.
He doesn't have chaos control. It doesn't count.
Doesn't have any guns.
It doesn't have
That's
a
true.
single gun.
I think it's soon. If they were still making characters for Smash, but they're not.
I guess the question is, if they added a second Sonic the Hedgehog character, would it be Shadow, Tails, or Knuckles?
That's a good question, too.
Because Knuckles
That's
is kind
tough.
of already Shadow the Hedgehog.
But your tongue.
Just an
They
echidna.
They somehow have multiple characters who are just like Sonic but edgy. So yeah, I would say they probably need to get Tails in there first, I would bet. Or
Mhm.
Knuckles. I mean, Knuckles is voiced by Idris Elba at this point. I think...
Is he really?
Yeah,
In
sex
the
icon
movie,
Knuckles the
yes.
Hedgehog. Sorry, Knuckles the
Oh,
Echidna.
man.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. You just saved us a bunch of emails, though, Gino. Good work.
Thank goodness.
Good save.
All right, so next time we are playing Shadow the Hedgehog. Thank you, Pete.
Yep. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, M.
Thank you. See you next time for certainly a game you can play. 4.7 out of 10 on IGN.
Love it.
And
Yay.
IGN, you have to like fist fight them to get your score below 7. You need to have personally hit a person's family member for them to give your game lower than a 7. Incredible. And thank you, dear listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That's our email address. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.